Um, in 2023, real quick, I just want to let everyone know that I am recovering from a heart transplant. So I've had an organ transplant where I had been a swim coach for over 30 years. It's funny that I listened to a lot of the speakers yesterday and how many of us were DJs. I had a DJ company for over 30 years here in Southern California, and we did weddings and events. And I mean, I did things like NASCAR and Stagecoach and Coachella, and I can't tell you thousands of events. And over the 30 years, and having so many people in the music industry was kind of interesting yesterday that a lot of entrepreneurs started their business off as a DJ and they've moved forward. So for me, I also was a swimming coach and I was a competitor in high school and college. And what happened with me was I caught congestive heart failure from a fall I took working at Universal Studios. And I had two hip replacements and I got an infection. And that infection went into my heart. And let me tell you, I never stopped smiling and I never stopped stopping. I believe that sometimes you have to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And the reason for that is there were many times I thought, oh gosh, I got both my hips replaced. Then my knees went bad and I had to get my knees replaced. And so then I had to stop my job at the studios, which I worked at Universal, and I was a lighting technician. And then I decided, well, I'm going to go back to the one job I love, which was coaching. So I went back to high school coaching and USA swimming coaching. I coached an age group program. And what ended up happening was that they called me into the hospital to do an echocardiogram. And they said, did you have a heart attack? And I went, what? So that's where it started. And that was probably 12 years ago. And from there, they started me on medication to fight the infection that was in my heart. And unfortunately, it didn't work. And I just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And 10 years went by, and I came home from Dallas from a conference a year and a half ago, and realized I had caught COVID. And even after having three vaccines, I couldn't get over the COVID. And after passing out one day, I had my wife take me to the hospital the next morning, and they said, Mr. Owens, you need to go directly to ER. Your blood pressure is 60 over 40, and your heart rate's 49 beats a minute, and you got a pacemaker supposed to keeping it at 80 beats a minute. So we're not sure what's going on. We need to take you to ER right now. We can't even touch you. So I went to ER, and I knew that once I got there, I was in trouble. They kept me in that room for 3 days, and next thing you know, I'm heading to UCLA in an ambulance, and they said to my wife that we're going to take him to the heart transplant team because medicine's not working. And when I got there, that was a hard pill to swallow for a guy who's always positive. And I will be honest with you, I'm always positive. There's hardly a day that I wake up without a smile on my face, without thank you God for letting me have another day in this life, and for giving me another opportunity to help kids. And the lady before me talking about all the kids, that's all I worked with in my life. I have a harder time talking with adults than I do with children. And I never had any kids, but that's where I am. So the heart transplant team told me that if I got a new heart, I might live. If I don't get a new heart, I have less than a year to go. Well, I was there for one day, and my blood pressure tanked, and they put me on this thing called ECMO, which took my blood out and put my blood in. It's kind of like a giant transfusion, and what it did is it reoxygenated my organs because my liver had 50% cirrhosis, my kidneys had stage 4 kidney failure, and my heart was only beating at 18% volume, keeping my blood pressure really low. And the doctors convinced my wife that night, the first night there, that if they don't put me on this ECMO, that it might be the end of me. They didn't know if I was going to last another day or two. So when you wake up that next morning and you realize that this could be the end of your story, what do you tell yourself? And for me, I told myself the same thing I told my kids every day that I had coached for 40 years. And I said to those kids every day that winning's not easy. It's never easy to become better than what you are and get where you want to go. It's not something that just happens because you wake up and you want it. Yeah, you've got to set goals. You've got to be ready to make a determination to put the mindset together that this is where I want to go. So my mindset was never, 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 never give up, which is what my book is called, by the way. And I posted a T-shirt in my room which said "Never, never, never give up." Winston Churchill sang, and I looked at that every single morning when I woke up. It was the first thing I saw, and I probably drove those doctors crazy because I was like, when am I getting out? When am I getting my heart? I'm not ready to go. And one of the things that you have to realize when getting a heart transplant was somebody else is leaving a gift of life. That was the most important thing to me was I'm the guy that would give my shirt off my back, and I realized that somebody's going to give me a gift to keep me alive and keep my story going. And with that being said, I was so thankful that, so you can't imagine how I couldn't wake up with a smile every day. It's one of those things where you say to yourself, wow, somebody's going to keep me alive for I don't know how long, but thank God I'm gonna get a gift. And it unfortunately took 4.5 months of being in the hospital. So the hospital became my home away from home. And I never got to go back home, by the way, from that first day at ER. I was in the hospital a complete 5.5 months before I got to go home. So the life in the hospital became my way of life. And I think that I'm the guy that would probably take 2 showers a day, and when you don't get to take a shower at all. And if when you see my book, you'll see some of the pictures where I had 15 IVs in my body. I had the ECMO tubes coming out of my femoral arteries in my legs, and I had impeller in my shoulder, keeping the blood flowing. I ended up having a blood clot that released and caused a stroke while I was in the hospital. So there was a lot of things that happened. One of the tubes ripped open in my leg, and my wife came in the room, and there was blood all over the floor, unfortunately. And they thought, well, she thought, is this the end? And they said he's not going to die here. So I want to tell everyone that's out there listening that, boy, I am so proud to be in Southern California where UCLA is, where the doctors and nurses and staff took care of me at UCLA, and I owe them my life, obviously, and I owe my donor, which I don't know the donor yet. I have written the family, and I'm hoping they're gonna write me back so I can tell them how amazing I feel. The only thing I was told was the donor was mid-20s and died of a brain injury, and had already decided he was going to be a donor ahead of time. So with that being said, I sat in that hospital thinking, what is it that I can tell my kids that I've already told my kids that now I can actually put down in words and teach others. And so I created what they called the S.W.I.M philosophy. And what that means is you got to be serious. As I said earlier, it's a mindset. You got to learn to be uncomfortable. You got to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And there were many days in that hospital that I was very uncomfortable. And I realized that I have to do what they tell me to do if I want to stay alive. And it's the same in business. Some days you're going to think that whatever decision I make might be the last decision I'm going to make. Is this the end of my business? As an entrepreneur, you got to be a person willing to make that decision. And you got to be the person that's willing to say to yourself, boy, this doesn't feel good, but I'm going to try it anyway, and give it your shot. So that's why I say you got to learn to be comfortable with becoming uncomfortable. And the seriousness of swimming was the same thing I told all the kids. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't just be a winner. So the W in swimming became you got to want to win. You've got to want to be better than what you are. You got to want to get from where you are to where you want to go. So how do you do that? You've got to set goals. It's all in my book. So you're going to have to get the book to actually read some of those philosophies so I can actually teach some of you, which by the way, I do webinars and I do have coaching programs, and we'll talk about that at the end. Needless to say, the W means winning. So you've got to decide to yourself that I'm going to set these goals. I'm going to do what it takes every day. I'm going to make my mindset that I'm going to get uncomfortable uh, and do whatever it is that I need to do. The I stands for inspiration. And it's funny that Ken said he couldn't sleep for a little while earlier this morning, and then he got a couple hours sleep. And I worked until 9:30. I watched you guys for about 5 hours yesterday, and then I finally had to go to work, and I coached the kids yet last night. And Got home about 9:30 and I said, "Oh man, I got to get up at 3 in the morning." So I went to bed and I set my alarm and I said, "All right, I'm getting up, man. I'm ready to go because I want to talk to the world about smiling." Because I tell you that I was so inspired yesterday listening to all the speakers that it just made me feel even better when I went to practice yesterday. So the inspiration is means sometimes you don't feel like you want to get up and go. I can't tell you how many days I didn't want to go when it was freezing cold outside, and I went anyway. And even though 4 or 5 kids might have only showed up to practice, they inspired me, and by me being there, that inspired them to want to go more. And by being inspired, we motivated the rest of the team because they see us improving. So the M stands for motivation, and it creates a feeling that if they can do it, so can we. And I did create a slideshow. I don't know if we can show it real quickly or not. Am I able to share my screen while we're doing this? Francine, can I share this
Yes,
thing?
you can. Yes, you can.
Oh, beautiful. Let's see if I can do this real quick. And let's tell me if you guys can see this.
There you go. Got it.
Beautiful. So what you're looking at first is the swim philosophy, and you're seeing the cover of my new book, which is coming out, published by Perfect Publishing, by the way, and Ken and Al and his staff over there, and Michelle. Anyway, let's get on to the first slide, and we talked a little bit earlier. Uh-oh, it's not moving. Okay, that's interesting. There we go. The seriousness we talked about, the S standing for seriousness. You got to have dedication. You got to have, of course, everybody knows Katie Ledecky, the greatest female athlete of all time. And you got to have accountability. You got to have discipline. And I'm going to go through this very quickly because I don't want to run out of time. The W standing for winning. If you remember that relay in the Olympics, not this past one, but 2 Olympics before that, where they came from behind to win. And those guys were motivated to win. They wanted to win. And one of the swimmers at his best swim of his life, they kept a positive attitude, their growth mindset. We talk resilience, and that's what I really feel that made a difference in my life. Being able to overcome adversity that put me in that hospital that could have ended my story. Um, your, you have to have determination. I will tell you that out of all the things, determination is what makes the difference for me. I want to get better, but I'm not going to give up until I get better. And that's where a lot of people fail. They think that, gosh, man, I'm just not getting better. I'm not feeling good about it. And then they start talking bad to themselves, and that mindset gets bad. And my determination has always been focused in one direction. You got to go forward. You can't
Okay,
change the past.
Jimmy, it's time.
Oh, gosh, I'm already
It is time. It's time to share all of your socials and how to get in touch with you.
very good, very good. I'm sorry.
Oh,
My
this
God,
is
I could talk for hours. Let
this
me
is great
let
stuff.
me
Tell people how
Um,
they can see the
let me
rest of
share the
this
screen.
well,
presentation.
Jimmy, you can actually keep going for now. We don't have our next guest yet.
Oh,
They are
perfect.
not, they haven't arrived in the lobby. So as of right now, you can continue on, good sir.
Awesome.
Oh,
Thank you, Dakota. Because I want to see the rest of this.
oh my gosh. Okay, let me go back to
Yeah,
sharing.
share it again.
Let me share my screen again, and I'm gonna back up real quick because I just skimmed through the. We were on
I will
Instagram.
let you know if that changes.
No problem, Dakota. I'm with you. So the I being inspiration, which I said earlier, sometimes you have to decide whether or not you want to go to practice because it's freezing outside. Or, I remember hearing the story from Michael Phelps that he said, Michael Phelps, the greatest swimmer of all time, everybody knows that guy. And he said there was 100 days a year he didn't want to go to practice, but he went anyway. And even though he might have only given 20 or 30%, his competition gave zero. And that's why he was the greatest of all time because he set his goals and he just never let them stop. He decided that's what he wanted to become, and that's what he did. So he had vision, he had empowerment, and I'm going to skip real quick so I don't get run out of time. The M standing for motivation. We talked earlier about setting your goals. You've got to have some goals that are going to be measurable, understandable, seriousness goals, goals that are specific to whatever it is you're doing. You've got to celebrate success. One of the things this weekend I was just at a swim meet with some of the kids, and they came back only better in their time for a couple of tenths of a second. They came and they didn't have a smile on their face, and I said, "Wait a minute, did you just do the best you could?" And they said, "Yes." Well, then what are you doing? Give me a high five. You need to sell. You just improved your time by 2 tenths. You know how many people don't even improve their time for 2 or 3 years? So you got to celebrate every little success. It means you get that first client, you got to celebrate that first client because that was the first one, even though you might have had 20 no's before that. Or some of us have been in business and they get 200 no's and they get their first one, first yes, and that's a celebration. You got to break down your task every day so you know what you're doing. You've got to set that positive self-talk every day. You got to tell yourself when you wake up, I'm a champion. I'm a winner. I can do this. Every day I get up and I thank God for giving me a heart, for giving me another day on this planet, for giving me another chance to inspire and motivate others, for giving me another opportunity to be here to do something great for the world. And you know what? I'm going to say it, even though I don't want it to sound goofy, to give somebody else a smile. Because that's what we're talking about today, right? The world of smiles, the National Smile-A-Thon 2025. I'm so excited because I smile every day, and I'm so glad to be able to be on here. You got to embrace your challenges. There are some times that things look overwhelming. When I was sitting on that deathbed at the hospital thinking, this might be the end of my story, I know that I've seen people, and even Ken, we talked about this when I first met Ken. The man with his health has a million dreams. The man or woman without their health has one dream, and that's just to get healthy again. And boy, I embraced that challenge. Every morning I drove those doctors crazy at 6:30 in the morning. I was the first guy awake, waiting for them to do their rounds and putting my hand up and saying, "Doc, when am I getting out? What's next? What's happening?" And somebody talked to me, and they started to just know me as coach, and started coming in my room every day and telling me everything that's going on and what's happening. And it was not an easy process, but there wasn't a single day in that hospital that I said, I'm not going to make it. Not a single day. So now I go back and talk to patients constantly. I'm an ambassador for One Legacy, the organ and tissue transplant OPO in Southern California and Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think we're coming up on the final mark.
Go ahead and share how people can connect with you. And, you have your book launch coming up. We're excited to support you.
Very good, guys. I appreciate the extra time. And the way people can get a hold of me, I did send it to you guys. I don't know if you have it, but I don't have a slide to show.
Oh, don't worry. Just put it in the chat, and every single person is going to get a slide that's redone for the release of we're chopping these up into 15-minute blocks, young man. And
very good.
You're going to have the Smile-A-Thon with all your information at the last. All right.
I'll put it in the chat. You can get a hold of me really easy on JimmyOwensSpeaker.com, JimmyOwensSpeaker.com, and you can check out my book through Perfect Publishing. We'll have our launch date in a few weeks, I believe.
Yes, and also on my comments on Facebook, you can put it there too as well. A lot of people watch that.